Well, hi there, and welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that is laser focused on inspiring you to start or to scale your side hustle income streams. I'm your host, Joan Posivy. Let me ask you something. Do you know anyone at all, who's living a life that's completely problem-free? Everything goes their way every single day. They just float through life on autopilot. Smiling, no bumps, no stress, no surprises. Yeah, me neither. Even the people who look like they always have it together, who seem to handle life effortlessly, they've got their own set of challenges too. The difference isn't that they have no problems, it's that they've learned how to handle them. And that's really what I want to explore with you today. Why problems aren't actually the problem, and how the way you see them changes everything. Do you remember when you were little, how the smallest thing could feel like the end of the world? Maybe your best friend wouldn't play with you that day. Or you didn't get invited to a birthday party. Or your favorite toy broke. And it felt huge, right? Devastating. Then, a few years later, you look back and you think, seriously? Why did that even bother me so much? As a teenager, it got a little more complicated. A breakup, a failed test, getting in trouble with your parents. I remember moments like that and I thought, honestly, my life is over. That's it. I can never show my face again. And of course, adulthood didn't exactly wipe the slate clean either. We still face problems. They just show up in different forms. Finances, work, relationships, health, family, business. The truth is, while your past doesn't have to predict your future, there's one thing we can count on. As long as we're alive, we'll keep having problems to deal with. A lot of people secretly hold on to this hope that one day something will happen. They'll land the perfect job, meet the perfect partner, make enough money, and then their problems will disappear. But that's not how life works, is it? Those things might change the type of problems you have, but they won't make problems go away. In fact, the bigger your goals, the bigger your opportunities, the more capable you become, the more complex your challenges get. See, it's not about eliminating problems. It's about learning to handle them at a higher level. So let's talk about that. Imagine a scale of capability from 1 to 10. On the lower end, you're just learning how to deal with life. Things feel overwhelming. Everything seems urgent, emotional, or personal. But as you grow through experience, through mindset, through maturity, you move up the scale. You start to see things differently. You stay calmer, you think more clearly, and you bounce back faster. That scale of capability determines how a big problem feels. Let's say someone is new to the workforce. They haven't yet developed strong communication or conflict resolution skills. When a coworker criticizes them or a client gets upset, they take it to heart. They can't sleep. They replay the conversation over and over again. To them, that problem on a scale of 1 to 10 feels like an 8 or a 9. Now imagine someone else, that same situation, but this person's been around the block a few times. They've learned that not every disagreement is an attack. They can listen, stay composed, and focus their thinking on solutions instead of who's to blame. For them, that same issue might barely register as a 3. The difference isn't the problem. It's the person viewing the problem. You've probably had moments in your own life where something that once felt huge now feels small. Maybe the first time you had to give a difficult presentation or deal with a tough conversation at work. Back then, your stomach was in knots. You couldn't think about anything else. But now, you'd handle it without losing sleep. That's growth. You've moved up the scale of capability. And that's why I always say, it's not the size of the problem that matters, it's the size of you. The more you develop yourself, your patience, your emotional control, your communication skills, the less those problems can throw you off course. You still have them, you still have problems, they just don't own you anymore, and you're more effective in dealing with them. Think about leaders like Tim Cook at Apple or Mary Barra at General Motors. They deal with problems on a massive scale, global issues, hundreds of thousands of employees, billions of dollars on the line, but they don't crumble under that pressure. They stay centered, they make clear decisions, They've trained themselves mentally, emotionally, strategically to stay calm in chaos. That's part of what they're compensated for. And they're compensated very well. And here's what's encouraging. You and I can build that same capacity, capability. Every time you choose to pause before reacting, every time you seek solutions instead of spiraling, you're strengthening your capability. Over time, your problems don't get smaller, you get bigger. When you commit to personal growth, when you read, listen, reflect, learn from mentors, your ability to handle challenges expands. That's when opportunities start showing up that used to intimidate you. Maybe a new business idea, a collaboration, or a leadership role that once felt out of reach suddenly feels, well, doable. Because here's the truth. As the size of the problems you can comfortably handle grows, so will the size of your success. If you can stay calm and think clearly when others panic, doors open. People trust you. You start to attract high-level situations and the rewards that go with them. Years ago, I was working at a conference at the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Beach, California. Gorgeous place. I was at the front desk checking out, and one of the staff answered a call from a guest who was, let's just put it, clearly not happy. From across the counter, I could hear this guy on the other end of the phone. He was just shouting. He was irate. And here's what really impressed me. The staff member, while hearing this obnoxious guest on the phone, she stayed completely calm, composed, professional, and she said, "Yes, Mr. Smith, we'll look into that immediately." I've changed the name because I actually knew him and I knew he could be a real piece of work. At any rate, then she turned to a colleague and said, "We have an opportunity in room 1208. Not a complaint, not a problem, an opportunity." That moment really stuck with me because that language reflected a mindset. By calling it an opportunity, she took control of the emotional tone. It wasn't drama, and she did not take it personally. Imagine if we did that in our own lives. Every time something didn't go our way, we thought, okay, here's an opportunity to grow, to respond better, to get stronger. That's one mental shift that can dramatically change the outcome for the better. So the next time something happens that you weren't expecting, instead of spiraling into frustration, just take a breath. Let yourself pause for a moment, skip the drama, skip the why me, then ask, what's really happening here? What's the best way to move this forward? Because when you approach a problem from a place of calm and curiosity rather than emotional reaction, your brain starts working for you instead of against you. And here's a tip I've used for years. If you ever find yourself saying, "I honestly don't know what to do," immediately follow that with, "Okay, but if I did know, what might that solution look like? What could my next step be? What angle haven't I looked at yet?" Your mind loves a good question. It'll start looking for answers. When you tell yourself, "I'm solution-oriented, there's always a way," you're giving your brain a mission, a quest. Suddenly you start noticing possibilities that you wouldn't have seen before. You think more clearly, more creatively. You approach challenges with curiosity instead of fear. Because here's what happens when you believe there's no solution. Your brain shuts down. But when you believe there is one, your mind goes, "Okay, let's find it. Over, under, around, or through, you will find a way." That belief alone makes life smoother, less stressful, and a lot more productive. I like to think of life as a mix of successes and learning experiences. And while it sure is fun and necessary to celebrate our successes, when things don't go as planned or the unexpected occurs, that learning prepares us for bigger challenges ahead. Every time something doesn't go the way you wanted, you can look at it two ways, either as proof that life's unfair or as feedback that's showing you what to strengthen next time. And here's a great nighttime habit, one that I've shared with coaching clients and podcast guests over the years. It's part of what I call your empowered evening. Just before you drift off to sleep, reflect on the day. If there's a situation that didn't go as planned, replay it in your imagination. Not the way it did go, but the way you wish it had. Visualize yourself handling it calmly, confidently, gracefully. And feel it as if it's already happened that way. Do that a few times. In a relaxed state, you're actually beginning to rewire your subconscious to handle future situations better. You're nurturing the seed of what you want instead of replaying what you don't. Stop the negative self-talk and bad-mouthing yourself. Damn, we can be our own worst enemy. Instead, affirm, I am a capable problem solver. I handle things well and for the good of everyone involved. I'm bigger than any problem. I can handle big. And here's the fascinating part. So often, what looks like a setback or a negative situation turns out to be exactly what we needed to move us forward. I've lost count of the times I thought something bad happened, only to look back later and realize that it set me up perfectly for the next step in my growth. Maybe that's happened for you too. You didn't get the job that you wanted, but it pushed you to start a lucrative side hustle. A relationship ended, but it made space for something or someone better. Someone turned down a collaboration, and months later, a better aligned opportunity showed up. That's why I try to remind myself, favor analysis, not judgment. Here's 3 ways that we judge, starting with how we judge ourselves. We can be our own harshest critics, can't we? If you've said or done something you regret, yes, make amends if you can, learn the lesson, and then move on. Remind yourself, in that moment, with the knowledge and the awareness that you had, you handled it as best you could. Now you know more. You'll do better next time. That's called growth. The past should be a guidepost, not a hitching post. And if you allow that grace for yourself, you'll find it easier to extend it to others too. Now, speaking of others, have you noticed how much energy some people spend getting upset about what other people are doing, even when it doesn't affect them? I remember when I lived in a neighborhood that started an online community forum. To get things rolling, the moderator asked everyone to share what topics they'd wanted to discuss. One person wrote, "We need to talk about those kids on Main Street who wear," and I quote, "too many earrings and the wrong clothes." And I thought, well, wait a minute here. What's the right number of earrings? What do the right clothes even look like? So here's this person who perhaps started their morning in a decent mood, goes for a walk, they're walking along Main Street, and out of the corner of their eye, across the street, they spot a person who, in their belief, in their judgment, feels that they're wearing the wrong clothes and too many earrings. And suddenly, they begin to feel angry. Did that kid make him upset, or did he do that to himself? Yeah, we both know the answer. But if someone is truly being obnoxious with you, when you understand that everyone operates from their own conditioning, their own level of awareness, it doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it helps you not take it personally. Because it's not about you. You can stay centered, you can choose peace instead of irritation. Life isn't a bunch of people doing things to us. It's about what we're drawing to us. And finally, there's our habit of judging events. Oftentimes, we're too quick to decide that something's bad. But how many times have you looked back later and realized that it was actually a good thing? A friend of mine, Lisa, once told me about her time as president of a private club. She thought she had found the perfect new general manager. But then, at the last minute, he backed out. Yikes! But the next day, through beautiful synchronicity, she met someone else who turned out to be the perfect fit. Now, that was years ago, and he's been in the role ever since and doing a great job. Another friend of mine, Keith, was all set to go motocross riding one Sunday. He'd been looking forward to it for weeks. But that morning, he discovered a broken part on his bike, and he had to cancel. He was so disappointed. Until, that evening, his friends still hadn't returned. Turns out they'd gotten stuck in a deep ravine, and search and rescue had to helicopter them out the following day. Suddenly, missing that ride didn't feel so bad. Sometimes we just don't see the full picture yet. And here's the thing. Life has a funny way of rearranging itself in our favor, even when it doesn't feel like it in that moment. The problem in front of you might actually be the stepping stone you need to get to where you're meant to go next. So when challenges show up, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Stay open to the possibility that maybe it's going to play out to be a positive thing. So as you go through your day, whether you're dealing with a work issue, a family challenge, or something that's just not going your way, remember this. Problems aren't the problem. They're teachers. They're invitations to grow. Every one of them is helping you build your capability, your character. So instead of wishing you never again had problems, wish for greater capability. Because the bigger you grow, the less insurmountable new problems will seem. And when that happens, life opens up in some pretty incredible ways. Well, that's a wrap for today. If our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider showing your support by visiting sidehustlehero.com/support. That's where you can shoot me a virtual coffee. It's a real thing and a fun way to give the show a caffeinated thumbs up. Thank you so much. Be sure to check out the full episode notes, which live at our website, sidehustlehero.com. While there, be sure to grab a copy of my 28-page guide called Smart Start, From Idea to It's Live in 7 Steps. It's free for now, but not forever, at sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in this podcast, I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to leave a comment, subscribe, and share this episode with a colleague or friend, someone who you'd like to say, hey, I found this an insightful way to look at problems. Thought you might too. And of course, thanks for listening, and hustle on.